So I started by saying I think we've had a great spring, probably our most productive since I've been here. It's my fourth spring here. I think we, really got better. We have a lot of great new additions and, coaches and players. So I thought that was very productive. I think with any type of business in the NFL, there's so many perspectives that you can look at. So, with how many different roles that I have in this organization, I could give you an answer on about 5 different perspectives. So, I don't think it's been a distraction. I think it's more been a distraction for the fans mostly. I mean, I know Twitter's hot right now, and Cincy Twitter doesn't mess around. And, obviously you don't want that to be, carry into, when it gets real. This is, like I said, I thought a productive spring. This is a different time. And I think it's how it's played out has been probably unfortunate for both sides. But if I wanted to give you my take on it, you'd have to ask me which perspective I was coming from with my 5 different roles. Yeah.
What makes you say that this has been the most productive spring?
So I thought we got a lot of great O-line, D-line work in. I think Scott and Jerry have really added a great new dimension to our cameras on. There we go. To our trench play. I think we got a lot of great players, and it just felt those are we went out there for these last 9-10 practices and really got after it, more so than we have in the past.
You seem really engaged with Scott Peters during these drills. Has it been like a refresh for you?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a very unique, being year 10 and going over techniques that I've never heard of, and I think that's been that's one of the joys I take as a football player. I've had a lot of O-line coaches in my time, and to learn something that I've never even heard of has it's taken this 8 weeks to kind of get comfortable with it, and now we can take it in the summer and train it. But I think he's done a great job. We're going to have some nuances that are a little bit different, and I think it's going to what we talked about when he first got hired. I was like, how can we increase our one-on-one win percentage? That's like that's like the main goal is how can we put tools in our players' hands that increase the chances of a one-on-one victory? Because I think that we've it's great to have a guy come in that hasn't been here, kind of look at it from 10,000 feet and really be honest about what we are, who we are, who we are as an offense, and how we can be the best unit for this offense.
Is the hand-to-hand combat and the leverage stuff the biggest thing that's different?
I would say so. Yeah, I mean he's obviously trained fighters for a long time. There's a lot of parallels to what he did training, but you saw it out there today. It's very applicable to what we do, and really just adding tools in our toolbox to increase our chances of victory.
On either side of it, it seems there's going to be change this year, and I'm just curious, how important is this time of year to kind of get used to whatever that change is?
The reps are very valuable. I've said this many times, you guys. I think O-line, more than any other position, is a repetition and continuity position. And we've had great continuity here, for a while, and now we got some new faces in. So, repetition maxing has been important for us, and I think everyone's done a great job.
What have been your impressions with Lucas, with Dylan? What have the biggest takeaways been?
I think these guys have come in and done all the right things. I think Lucas is it's such a pleasure to have another 10-year vet leader in the room, helping out the young guys, and obviously a very proven good player. And I think Dylan's going to be great. He's come in, he's a big, strong kid, young man, married man, and it's great to have someone to help out, and I think he's really going to be a positive impact on our offense.
Sorry to get squeezed in here. What's been the reaction? What's been the reaction like to what's going on with Shamar from the players, and kind of how he's kind of had to handle this?
So what I said, Kelsey asked me earlier. So if you ask me that question, I think you need to ask me from what perspective do you want me to answer it, because there's about 5 different ones that I could, based on how many roles that I hold in the organization in the NFL. I think obviously everyone can agree that not practicing all spring is an unfortunate outcome of business. It's a reality, and I don't think there's any resentment from players, but I hope that it's resolved before the real starts.
You don't see a rookie often criticize the organization before he ever signs a contract. What was your reaction to that?
I mean, obviously, again, like I've said, I mean, it's not the best case scenario of how the spring could have gone for our first round pick, but you know, there is a pretty serious business aspect to our profession, and you know, he's taken counsel from his camp, and you know, I don't. The main thing I want to say is I don't think to either of our defensive ends that there's not any harboring resentment in this locker room to them. I know, and I really hope that both camps can figure this out, because we have a really good team. We've had a super productive spring, and you know, you just don't want this to carry over into summer.
What does PA to think of this? Because it's a fascinating case study. What's going on with Shamar?
It is, and I've looked at it's honestly it's hard to get all the information because you don't know what you're looking at. I mean, Twitter is Twitter, so I don't know really what the actual dispute is, and I think that it's very nuanced. I think from a PA perspective, always we don't want language in contracts that are going to be negative to players as far as guaranteed money. We're always trying to max the amount of guarantees that guys get. So it's a business negotiation, and I feel for Shamar that he has to this is his first taste of the league with kind of a lot of hate on the internet. Not hate, but Cincy Twitter doesn't mess around. So I hope that he can come and be super productive in fall and kind of get everyone back on his side. But again, I will reiterate, his teammates, this locker room, we are not harboring any resentment. We just hope that it gets resolved with upstairs.
One thing Cincy Twitter has pointed out is he hasn't taken a snap in the NFL. Has he earned the right to come in as somebody who hasn't played in the NFL and say what he did?
Well, I think another perspective you can even talk about is just how much money's at stake. So I think anyone in any position, any job, when it's that much money, things get very serious. So, I don't know if it's about earning the right. I think, maybe. No, I don't think there's anything about earning the right. I think there's just a lot of money at stake, and I just hope that we can resolve this, get him back on track, and have a great career in stripes.
How do you all as a team make sure that that's not a distraction that hurts you guys as a team?
I think more than ever this spring we've come together. It's been a big one of our big themes has been know your teammates, and we've done a great job of getting around each other, hanging out a lot, and that's mostly it's mostly a personal issue for him. It's his business, what he has to do, and obviously he's taking advice from a law professional. So there's a lot of money at stake. There's a lot of different nuances to the whole thing, and I think hopefully this summer we got both our stud DNs ready to go.
Can you explain to fans why this guaranteed money is so important to players? I think a lot of fans don't really understand it. Media probably don't either. Why is it so important from y'all's perspective to protect as much guaranteed money as possible?
Well, unlike any other sports league, we have been slower to the role of baking in guarantees to our contracts. So there's nothing in the NBA collective bargaining agreement that states your contract has to be guaranteed. That was player driven, and they just baked it into their own contracts, and now it's set a precedent to where everyone's contract's guaranteed in the NBA. So, or I don't know if everyone is, but more than us. So, we fought very hard to negotiate more guarantees for guys in the most brutal of sports, where it is a very, very high rate of injury, and a lot of guys. I mean, football, the biggest luxury in your football career would be able to walk away from the game when you want to, and that's not the case for a lot of guys. So, we're focused on getting as much as you can out of this game while you can, because it's very finite, very short, and your earning potential is more extremely limited than any other sport.
Can a guy like Shamar still